Right? And that because of the sure guy's going to give up once he understands that before. Right?
Ready? Okay, we're going to go through now the second share in Siman Daled. We're going to have one more share in Siman Daled afterwards to go through the poskim that deal with some practical cases. I just want to finish. I'm going to go today till the second to last topic of Siman Daled, and then the next share is going to be the last topic of Siman Daled and the Chuvas. So the bulk of Siman Daled discusses Mamzeres, which we already went through the ideas behind it. We know that Mamzer is one of the ones that are Surim Lavoi Bakol due to, that means they're not allowed to get married to anybody but a Mamzer or certain other kinds of people. In this Siman that discusses Bechal, those are Surim Lavoi Bakol. The biggest bulk of the halachas refer to a Mamzer. So starting from Lerech Sifta Zayin goes to different cases where we are choishish for mamzeres due to certain scenarios, when we are choishish, when we're not choishish, who is believed and who is not believed. And we have essentially three categories, three general categories of mamzeres. We have a mamzer midaraisa, that we say a mamzer midaraisa, we're soon going to see, is mutter to marry mamzeres midaraisa. Mamzer midarabanon, that means he's a mamzer vadai, but only midarabanon. He's allowed to marry a mamzeres midarabanon. And a safek mamzer, where he is not allowed to marry a mamzeres, because maybe he's Jewish. Maybe he is not a mamzer. He's not allowed to marry a regular non-mamzeres, because maybe he is a mamzer, and he's not allowed to marry a safek mamzeres, because either of them can be, since they're safek, either of them can be not a mamzer. Now, even if they are in such scenarios, being that they're a safek to each other, when they're both married to each other, we don't say two sfeikas combined. Rather, we say maybe each one is a safek, whether he is or he's not so. They are aser. The first case that discusses in Sifta Zayin is a very simple case. The husband traveled out of town, or she is alive. We know he's alive. And she went and she married somebody else. What does marry mean? Now, if she marries somebody else, now if she's just with somebody else, she's a surah l'ba'al l'bayil. That's not in this topic, but that's a halacha to remember. She's a surah l'ba'al l'bayil. If she marries a second person, then she has to be teitzei mizeh mizeh. She has to get a get from both. So now, what if she gets married to somebody else? Now, if there was kiddushin and there was chuppah, was kiddushin and nisuin, even if there was she was not together with him, she still becomes aser to him, to her husband. If there was kiddushin and there was no nisuin, but there was eidei yichud, so we say eidei yichud heimim eidei bir, it's considered as if there was nisuin also, and therefore she is also possible. She's also asura to him. If there was kiddushin and there was no nisuin and there was no eidei yichud, then she is not asura to him. But let's say she got married to somebody else, and then she had a baby. That baby is a mamzer midiraisa, and therefore he's mamzer vada midiraisa. Therefore he's mutter to marry a mamzeres midiraisa also. And soon we're going to see in Sifrit Ches that the kids are also mamzerim, and it continues down the generations. Now, what happens if the second person, now she's supposed to receive a get from the first one, supposed to receive a get from the second one. She only got a get from the second one. She didn't get a get from the first one. He doesn't want to give her a get. He wants to go back to her. And after she got a get from the second one, the first guy went back to her and she became pregnant from him. So over here, the Mechaber Paskins, that the kid is a mamzer midrabanon, and he's allowed to marry mamzeres midrabanon. Why is it a mamzer midrabanon? Over here it's a din of knas. Exactly what the knas is and what scenarios we're going to discuss now. We have in the Neisei Kelim, it discusses what the situation over here is. The Mashmos of the Shulchan Aruch says she became pregnant from the first one after she received the get from the second one, so she didn't get a get from the first one. In such a scenario, a mamzer midivrei seifrim. It's mashma that if she did receive, she was that if she became pregnant from. I mixed up the two cases. If she became pregnant from the first one before getting a get from the second one, then the vlad is a mamzer midivrei seifrim. I mixed up the whole thing. If she became pregnant from the first one after she got a get from the second one, according to the Mechaber, it's mashma that it's fine. That is not even a mamzer midivrei seifrim, and that is the shit of the Rambam. And if she became pregnant from the second one after she received the get from the first one, that means she was married to somebody. Then she married a second person. Then she received a get from the first one. And then she became pregnant from the second one instead of receiving a get from him. In such a scenario, the vlad is a mamzer midivrei seifrim mitzad knas. And that's how the Beis Yosef understands that side the Tur and side the Rambam hold this opinion. Therefore, according to the klolim of the Beis Yosef, he has 2 out of 3, and he doesn't have to. Then he paskins like them, which means that if she becomes pregnant from the first one after she got divorced from the second one, the kid is bechal not even a mamzer. The Taz and other ones say that's not so. The Beis Yosef call it misunderstood the Tur. And really the Tur and the Rambam disagree. According to the Rambam, the kid is not a mamzer midivrei seifrim, whether when she becomes pregnant from the first husband, whether whether she received a get from one, and whether she became pregnant from the first one, after the second one gave a get, or she became pregnant from the second one after the first one gave a get. In all of those, the kid is not a mamzer, even midrabanan. The Chachamim were not kindness in such a scenario. Did not give a knas in such a scenario. The only times the Chachamim give a knas is when there was no get from either of them. That's the only time Chachamim give a knas. Now, and the Taisus and the Tur say, why is that? Obviously, it's similar to a Deiraisa. That's what Chachamim made a knas over there. If there's not similar to Deiraisa over here, when both of them did not give a get, so obviously if she became pregnant from the second one before the first one gave a get, the vlad is a mamzer midraisa. But when it's the other way around, that she became pregnant from the first one before getting a get from the second one, the vlad is not. In such a scenario, the vlad is. That's when the Chachamim made a knas. But if there's a get from either of them, and she became pregnant from the other one, then the Chachamim were not goes any knas. That's the way the Taz and other ones understand the Rambam. And they say, but the Tur doesn't follow that shit. The Tur and the Tosfos, they hold that there is that the Chachamim were kindness. B'divrei seifrim, whenever, in any scenario when there's a get only from one of them. If there's a get from one of them, she becomes pregnant from the other one, that's always a mamzer b'divrei seifrim. Chachamim made a knas over there. And the only time that there is no knas is when she gets divorced from both of them. And then she was mezaneh with one of them, then there's no not even a mamzer midrabanan. Now, if the woman became pregnant, if the woman was mezana, not to comparison, the woman was mezana, she did not get married to a second person, she was mezana, and the husband came back, and he heard about it, and he doesn't care, and he went and lived with her and had another kid. That kid is also not a mamzer. That is, when it comes to Seif to Zion, that is essentially the discussion over here when you have that the knas of Chachamim is evidently depends on which shita you follow, it evidently depends on whether the knas, when there was a nisuin, a second nisuin, and therefore there's a teitzeh mizeh, and one of them gave a get, and therefore l'cha'oira, the kid should not become midiraisa, the kid is not a mamzer because there was no mamish be'ilas isur. For that, it's not the isur of erva which makes the vlad asur, but in this case, chachamim were kindness, and we gave a knas. Now, what happens if? So now that's sifter zayin. Let's move on to next halachas that are relevant to mamzeres. If there is somebody who is a woman who's for sure mamzeres, we have we know she's mamzeres midiraisa, and she lived with a guy. The kid is a mamzer. Why don't we say? Because we know when it goes to a goy with a goy with a woman, with a Jewish woman, the vlad has no yichus whatsoever to the goy. The full yichus that he has is after the woman, and therefore, since the woman is a mamzeres, he's completely Jewish and completely a mamzer. However, and if a goy is with an eishes ish, even with an eishes ish, so yes, she becomes a surah l'baylo, but the kid is still not a mamzer. And definitely, if the guy is with a regular Jewish woman that's not a eishes ish, the kid is definitely not a mamzer. The only thing is, if the kid is a daughter, she becomes peguma l'kahuna that she cannot marry a kohen. Now, in this din of peguma l'kahuna, there's a whole machlekes before the Shulchan Aruch, whether she becomes completely asur l'kohen, like a halala, means the daughter, or she's completely kosher. The Shulchan Aruch takes the approach that she is peguma l'kahuna, which means that she is. The difference is if it's a halala, the kohen has to divorce her. If it's full Jewish, there's nothing to worry about. Peguma means that l'chatchila should not marry. If they married by mistake without knowing, and then you discover she's a peguma l'kahuna, then the kid, then nisus lo teitzei. It's interesting to point out that what is the din of these kids? Right? Just it's not relevant to this siman so much. If it's a peguma l'kahuna, I think we discussed it in the past. If not, it chazon l'moyed. I will discuss it in the future. Just in passing, that there are shittas, the chuvas in today's day and age, Rav Mashash and Rav Shlomo Amar, that they explain why the kid is kosher. The kid does not lose any status of kahuna. So if a kohen married a peguma l'kahuna, for example, a girl who was born from a Jewish mother and a non-Jewish father, the kid does not become a cholol or a suffix cholol or anything of the sort. And the svara is that if loy teitzei, if it's nisus loy teitzei, that means that this diavad makes it that the kids remain completely as kohenim. What happens if a mamzer lives with a non-Jewish lady? So in such a scenario, the kid is a goy. There's not mesiachas after the father at all. If the kid is a goy, and then the kid converts, he doesn't get his mamzeres when he goes into the mikveh. He was a goy and converted. It's not mesiachas anything after the father. The kid is kosher. Same thing, a mamzer which marries a shifcha, or lives with a shifcha. Sorry, there's no kiddush in it. He lives with a shifcha, and he has a kid. The kid is an eved. Whoever owns the shifcha owns the children, owns the avodim, the kids. And then if the adain was meshachrer these little avodim, the kids, then the kids are kosher, like if it's done properly. he's a ben chayrin. He's an eved and a shtachar is a ben chayrin and is kosher. Therefore, the Shulchan Aruch says, Lechatchila, a mamzer can go ahead and marry a shifcha for the purpose of kashering his yichus. But, how is it done? The shifcha has to be toivel l'shem avdus, and has to be mekabel Torah mitzvahs. If she's not mekabel Torah mitzvahs, then she's not Jewish. She's not nothing. She's not a shifcha. She's nothing. She was not toivel. If she was toivel, she's not mekabel Torah mitzvahs. It's nothing. She remains a goya. If she has no kabbalah mitzvahs and she remains a goya, then the mamzer, being that he's Jewish, is not allowed to be with her. Just like he's not allowed to be with a regular goya. Nothing to do with the specific one. So for it to be a shifcha, the shifcha has to be a shifcha who there was kabbalah mitzvahs, and the tefillah was l'shem avdos. And then afterwards, the kids are born. The kids are meshuchrer. Once the kids are meshuchrer, the kids are kosher. There's a whole machlokes that goes back hundreds of years already, whether it could even apply today or not. And this machlokes is connected to a whole other machlokes. When do we say dina de malchusa dina? There's different approaches when we say dina de malchusa dina. Do we say dina de malchusa dina across the board? Do we say dina de malchusa dina only on things that are taxes and things that are done for the benefit of the country? Or do we say dina de malchusa dina only when it does not contradict the Torah? There's different approaches how to deal with it. So based on that came the question, what is the din of I'm talking about a few hundred years ago already, that slavery was no longer permitted in certain places. If Din de Malchus prohibits the purchasing, does not give you rights of ownership over a slave, how can you buy a shifcha and be metaher your vlad? So the Mari ben Lev holds that being in his countries already, according to Din de Malchus, it was illegal to purchase people, and you didn't get a kinyan haguf or even kinyan haperis in the eved. All you did was that you had him as a long-term worker, but you didn't own him. Legally, the legal definition was you got him as a long-term worker, an employee, and therefore being as an employee, so therefore there's no mitzadin de malchusa. It's not going to help anything. Why? Because even if you're going to do a tevilah l'shem avdus, it's still not going to do anything. Because if she's tevilah l'shem avdus, means she's tevilah l'shem something that's non-existent. The tevilah wasn't oile to her to make her Jewish. She remains a goya, and he's not allowed to marry her. And if the tevilah does work, she anyways can't become an Eved, according to the Mari ben Lev, because it's illegal. She can't become an Eved, so b'meila she becomes fully Jewish, and she's also and then he's not metar zera. A mamzer could marry Geiris, but he's not metar zera, so it doesn't help you. It doesn't help regardless. That's what the Mari ben Lev writes. The Marash Dam writes the same thing. Now, it's interesting to point out, you're not going to find, historically speaking, you're not going to find any source that's going to discuss these halachas in the European countries prior to a certain time. For legal purposes, they weren't able to discuss these topics. Well, you see them by the Sfadisha. That is the Marashdam and the Mari ben Lev. The Mabit took the other approach. He holds that being that there is such a metzias.
Were they not able because they weren't allowed to have gators?
Yeah, not allowed to do gators. So there weren't a lot of discuss b'chal. The Mabit takes a different approach. He says, legally you're allowed to own slaves in his place. Sometimes, and why? He says, we go in Damascus, in Syria, or where I am, we go there, you go to the market, you buy them. Sometimes they're going to go to courts and they're going to complain about it. Sometimes it's at the court. Sometimes the purchase was done wrong, whatever it is. It's not an issue, it's not a legal issue. The status of this person does not change. Remains an Eved. So therefore, he says that you are allowed to do it. However, he puts a point he adds that it's for a different reason, that it should be done through a third party. That means not that the person who wants to marry her should buy her. Now we're going to get to in 2 minutes. We're going to get to that point. In today's day, in the more later place, not today, I'm talking about in the last 60, 70 years, the Chalkas Yaakov brings the Shach and Choshen Mishpah that we don't say Dina de Malchusa Dina against Torah. And according to Torah, you could buy a shivcha, right? So Dina de Malchusa says you cannot buy a shivcha. But it's against Torah. Not against Torah that it fights Torah, but it's the din de Malchusa says that something that you're allowed to do, Api Torah, you're not allowed to do. So therefore, you don't have to, it's not din de Malchusa doesn't kick in over here. We don't have to be mischashev in din de Malchusa, and therefore she could toivel l'shem avdus and be a shivcha. However, it should be done through a bezeh mumche, not through a bottom. It shouldn't become a leitzanas that the Psarov does, and people are going to talk bad about it. Same thing Shas Tshuva is Beis Avi, which was in New York. The Chalkas Yaakov was in Switzerland after the war. The Beis Avi was in New York in the time of the First World War, or before, around that time. And we're talking about two places that slavery was clearly not allowed. And they took the approach that being that it's this Dina de Malchusa Dina does not, it contradicts the halachas in Torah, so therefore we don't have to listen to it, and he could purchase a shivcha. The Minchas Yitzchok says that he doesn't want to get behind the whole discussion of this Dina de Malchusa, not Dina de Malchusa. He goes from a whole totally different angle. There's a Bechor Shoyer in Hilchas Pesach regarding a Mechiras a Mechiras Chametz, or another topic over there about Chametz being transferred. Why? Regarding Harame, if Harame, that basically, and this Bechor Shoyer is also quoted in the Tzemach Tzedek, Sayin Hilchas Ribis and Sayin Hilchas Pesach, L'halacha, Harame does not work in Isurei Torah, only works in Terabbanan. So therefore, we have a mamzeres. And we have a mamzer, and he wants to marry a shivcha. And this whole thing is based on a drei. You want to buy a shivcha for that purpose, to make a harama. Why are you making a harama? Because really, legally, you're not allowed to. So you're piling it all up together. Legally, you're not allowed to. You did it because al pi Torah there's such a svara. So, and really, why are you doing it? Clearly, you're not interested in her being a slave. All you want to do is marry her. So there, in harama, and harama in Torah is not moil. He doesn't mention l'chayre if it will be a derabanan, the mamzer derabanan. There's no harama would apply, but he doesn't discuss that part. And the Shevet HaLevi, Rav Vosner, he paskins the mitzadin and malchusa also. He takes the approach in malchusa, just like the Mari ben Lev, and therefore it doesn't work. Now, when the person is living with her, he has to clearly have in mind that it's not l'shem nisuin. Usually we say in Adam oise bilosi bilasnus, even though that's a chazak, even though today the chazaka doesn't, we in other places in mamzeres we use the chazaka the other way and say today doesn't apply. Over here, let's go through this. Chazaka and oise bilosi bilasnus. If a person is going to be living with a shivcha, and it's not going to be clear that his bias are not for the purpose of nisuin, the shaila, that we're going to say, if he wants to be with a woman, he obviously wants to be mekadosher. Kedusha, not toifus. You can't be kedusha in a shivcha. So obviously he was meshachar her, and then he was with her. So therefore, to prevent that, there has to be that it's clear that it's not l'shem bia, and there was no shichrur or anything of the sort. So that's why the mabit, go back to the mabit says do it through a third party. Not the person is buying the shivcha. Another person buys the shivcha. And he's not getting married to her. It's a friend. So maybe he knows about it, he doesn't know about it, whatever it is. The person buys a shivcha. And then he lives with that shivcha, but it's clear he cannot be meshachar somebody else's shivcha. So it's clear that it was not done Hashem Kedusha. Kedusha not shaykh in such a scenario. And then the kids belong to the Adon, to whoever the owner is of the shivcha. And the Adon, when he decides to be meshachar, then they become bnei chayrin, and he kashered, he was machshir his zera. And that's Moshe Sternbuch also writes that in one of his tshuvas. I don't know where it's printed. I don't remember now where it's printed, but he does bring it. He does bring that. The dafka do it through in places. He holds that he could do it, and should be done through a third party. Now, even though a mamzer, it says a mamzeres lo yova bekal Hashem, can't get married. The mamzer cannot marry a Yisraelis, and the Yisrael cannot marry a mamzeres. However, he could marry a ger. A mamzeres could marry a ger or eved meshucher, and there's no and the kids remain mamzerim because she's a mamzeres. But there's no isur love bakol because kohol does not include. There's no kohol gerim and kohol avodim meshuchrarim. So therefore, even though there's no isur of layavoi bakol, just the kids are in mamzerim. Same thing the other way around. A mamzer marries a gioris or a shivcha meshuchreres, and that not only does it apply to the actual ger, to the actual gioris. Shulchan Aruch says it continues even for 10 generations the children, and the Rambam doesn't take it so far. He says until they forget that they're gerim. Until they forget that the people don't talk about that they're gerim, but gerim anymore. And then Shulchan Aruch points out something very interesting in Sif Chav Gimel, which I found very interesting. After discussing this, he says, but a ger who marries a Jewish woman, the kid or a Jewish person that marries a Gioris, the kid is 100% kosher, and he's not allowed to marry a mamzer or a mamzeres. Really, these halachas should be in Chazgerus, but they ended up over here because since it's discussing that, since the Sif before tells you that the Gioris could marry a mamzer, so you're going to think maybe there's some kind of gam in the Gerim. Comes and tells you no. A Ger marries a regular Yisraelis or Gioris marries a Yisrael. The kids are completely kosher, and it's not an issue. Now I want to move to when it comes to shilas when it comes to the next about other things. If a woman that's not married, she's a pnuya, and she gave birth, and she's not here in front of us, we could ask her about the status of the kid. Or she is here and she says that it's from a specific person, and the Bezdin knows that this person is a mamzer, the child is still not considered a mamzer vadai, only a sofek mamzer. Why? She's a pnuya, we say, just like she was mezana with this guy who was a mamzer. She was mezana with somebody else also. This is in Sif Chavav. And she is not ne'eman to say that she was with this guy who we know is a vadai mamzer. She has no ne'emanus. And we're going to later see that she does have certain ne'emanus to say who she was with. To be machshir the vlad, that's only to be machshir the vlad, not to be poisel the vlad. Not to be poisel the vlad. And why are we now? And we're still the Sofek mamzer because we know there's a mamzer in town. If you know that the whole city, the Bezdin knows that all the people in this city are kosher people, it's not no goy, no mamzer in town, then if she comes and she says, I was with this guy from out of town, whatever, we don't believe her, and the kid is considered kosher. Even if we say that the vlad is, if she says that she was with somebody, and that person is, we know he's a mamzer, the kid is only a sofek mamzer, that also applies even if that guy comes and says, this is my kid. Why? Because he doesn't really have a way to know that it's his kid. Why doesn't he have a way to know it's his kid? Same reason. With him, she doesn't somebody else. So the fact that he says that it's his kid, there's not enough of a right to say that it's take his kid. So we know that the father has a din yakir, he's ne'eman midin yakir, that he could say who b'ni zeh, mamzer, or whatever it is. That's only when he is married. Therefore, there's a chazaka that this is his wife, and there's a chazaka, there's kids, and the chazaka reveals achar. Such a scenario, the husband has trust. But over here, he's mezana. She's mezana. She's a pnuya. He doesn't have that same ne'emanas of yakir that he would have if she would be his wife. But this is all when we know that this guy is a mamzer. What happens if we know that he's kosher? We know that he's kosher. The vlad is kosher. Elamai, there's a whole discussion when if he is moide, if he's not moide, regarding giving him money mitzad Yerusha. But other than that, excluding Yerusha, if she says, I was with this and this person, this is lakosher nevalti, yeah, then the kid is, and we know it's kosher, the kid is kosher. And even if he's not moide, he denies it. He says, it's not for me. The vlad is still considered kosher until proven otherwise. What happens if he doesn't say anything? We don't ask him because he's not around. Well, we know he's kosher, so we say he's completely kosher. Why? Because if he would, the most that there would be is that he would be a suffix, right? From before. The most that there's such a scenario is if we don't know who it was, it would have been a suffix. And since it's only a suffix, so together with that, when she says clearly l'kosher nevalti, she becomes. She is trusted and the baby is kosher. Now, she's trusted to say the baby is kosher. At the same time, she's also trusted that this kid of hers, even though he's not going to be considered a kid in Yerusha, cannot marry that guy's other kids. And all the ervos that are connected to that guy, this kid is not allowed to get married to, because we do believe her on that. The Ramah points out right away again here, and this is a din which is going to repeat itself again afterwards. This is only talking about a penuya, but a eishes ish, which comes and says that she was mezaneh with somebody, even if she states who she was mezaneh with, we don't believe her, because we don't say the kid. We say the kid is kosher because it's a crucial point that comes across. Reiv be'ilos achar habal. Whatever Reiv be'ilos achar habal means, I'm not going to discuss again now, but next year, Reiv be'ilos achar habal, and therefore she is considered, she is trusted. She's not trusted, I mean. Just also, if a woman comes and says she was mezaneh with somebody else, we say, she was planning on, she doesn't want to stay married to him. She knows she's going to say, this is not in the Siman, she knows she's going to say that, somebody else, you have to give me a get. She wants to get, she says, oh, it was somebody else. And he tells them, don't believe them on such a scenario. Don't believe her. So over here also we don't believe her. And she is not, we say, even if she says specifically she was mezaneh with somebody, and the kid is still kosher. And for this is in the end of Sif Chavav. We'll jump to Sif Chavtes. Right now, over there, the Shulchan Aruch clearly says that the Eishes Ish comes and says, this kid is not from my husband, but it's from somebody else. And even if we have Eidos and we know that she was mezaneh, and we have it's a reason to believe, she's still not ne'eman to make her kid anything, to make her kid puzzle. And the Ramah over here points out in Sif Chavtes, obviously he's talking about that she is married to him. Therefore, and she has a cheskes kashrus. Therefore, in such a scenario, when she says it's not for my husband, we don't believe her. Why? The Torah gives what's the general rule over here? Like we said, it's a din yakir. The Torah gives ne'emanos to the father to say, my son is a mamzer, or something along those lines. Or to say, this is not my child, when he's married. He could say, it's not my child, say, my son is a mamzer, one of the two things, but not the mother. It says, yakir. Yakir is in male, loshin zocher, not loshin nekeva. And therefore the father is trusted, and the kid is considered a mamzer. And again, this is only by a married woman. The Rama points it out again. This is only by a married woman. This is only by a married woman. But if a pnuya comes and says, I was with this guy, and that's his kid, and that guy goes and says, no, it's not from me, it's from I know who it's from that mamzer, from a certain mamzer, he's not trusted. There's no din yakir unless she was married to him. There is a machlekes, there's Prisha and Bach on one side, and the Darkei Moshe and others on the other side. They have a disagreement regarding machlekes. When do we say that she's not when she says Eini mibayla, when is she trusted that she's not believed? So the Bach and the Prisha say that only applies when he denies. The husband goes and says, my wife is not saying the truth. That kid, she says the kid is not for me. I'm telling you the kid is mine. That's when we say that. But the Darkei Moshe and a lot of others, the majority say no. It's even if the husband doesn't say anything. The kid is still considered kosher. We don't believe her. We still go on the Chazak Rev Be'ilas Achar Abal. Now what happens if he's out of town or he's not able to, or he himself doesn't know if it's his or it's not his? Over there, some people say it's a suffix. Some people say we still leave the Chazak Rev Be'ilas Achar Abal. And today the majority of poskim do follow that opinion. Even in such a scenario, we still say Rev Be'ilas Achar Abal and the kid is kosher. Now, if the father says that it's not his son, he says that one of the sons of Mamzerim, he becomes pasul. The Ramah points out that it's only that if the son was already muhzak to be his son, then he can no longer come and make him pasul. The same nemanos that we say that he has, another point is important to point out, the same nemanos that he has to say, this is not my son, he also has nemanos to say the son is a mamzer. How does he say that? By saying, yeah, it's my son, but it came from a mamzeres. Yeah, there's a machlokes on that, but the opinions say that he is neman to say that I'm married to a woman that's asur to erva or to whatever it is. This is b'ni, but it came from an erva, from a mamzeres, or anything along the line. And there are other opinions who disagree with it and say that he could only say it on his. He cannot create a psul on his son by being poisel somebody else. If he's being poisel, he's saying that woman's mamzeres, that woman's erva, something along those lines. If he's not sure if the kid is his son or is not his son, and he has been there the whole time, he doesn't say, he said, I don't know. She says it's not for me. I have no idea. I have no way of knowing. The kid is still completely kosher. There's an interesting Shas Tshuvas Binyan Olam, where he points out. He says that yes, the Torah gives the father nemanos. The whole machlekes, what's the nemanos? If the nemanos is mitzad that is it like edus, and therefore if he's not a kosher eid, he's not neman or not. But that's not the point. The Binyan Olam says, regardless of which way you take it, if the father has a reason, an agias moment to say this is not his kid, Lamosh is in a fight with his wife, maybe they're getting divorced or whatever it is, and he doesn't want to pay for the kid. Doesn't want to pay. It happens all the time. He says, it's not my kid. He's not believed. Not enough to make the kid a mamzer. That's not enough of a reason to make a kid a mamzer. Now, this is that we say over here that the father is trusted to say that the einoi mimenu, that it's not from him, which of the lashon of the mechaber, there is a mamzer. The mashmos is a mamzer vada. That's what the Torah writes. Not only, and we don't go into a whole discussion. We don't say, oh, maybe she was with a guy with a guy. Not according to the Rambam, he's not a mamzer vada. He's a mamzer suffix, because if they're going in town, the husband says it's not for me, we're not going to right away come and say it's from another Jew, and the kid is a mamzer. We're going to say maybe it's from a guy, so he becomes a suffix. He's a suffix mamzer. Interestingly, the Shiltei Gebayrim says, it's not what the Shulchan Aruch writes. Shiltei Gebayrim writes, and he explains what this din yakir is. He says din yakir is on b'noi. If a guy says einoi b'ni, why should he be trusted? Only on b'noi you can say b'ni zeh mamzer. You can't say this is not my son. If he says not my son, it's not like again the Shulchan Aruch does not paskin on it. In Seif Lamed is another interesting halacha. If a person says that he is a mamzer, it's enough of nemanis for him that he should be considered a mamzer, and that his kids should be considered mamzerim. However, if there are grandchildren already, then he's no longer trusted. He can't be poisel of third generation. He comes and he says, after his son has kids, he comes and says, I'm a mamzer, and therefore my son's a mamzer, and therefore my grandchildren are mamzerim. He's not trusted anymore. He is, and he's not trusted, and we don't say pagin and dibura. We don't say, oh, his kids are mamzerim, his grandkids are not mamzerim. No, we say he's not a mamzer. We just say his kids are not a mamzer, and his grandkids are not mamzerim. On himself, even if he's not a mamzer, shavi anafshei, and he should not get married to a Jewish person. The end of Siman Daled is Asufi and Shtuki. I don't have enough time to go through it now. And next year I'll start off with that and continue to do the next part of it.